Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and today we are starting the next video in our stash series. So these videos come about by people who purchase my second-hand art supplies and prints from the stash shop, which is over on the website. And the money that goes from that, we save it up until we've got £50, and then I give you guys a chance to decide on what you would like done with that money, and then I make a video on it. So we've had some voting and you guys never ever cease to amaze me, because what is popular in the original suggestions and the most popular one isn't necessarily the one that always comes out on top when you actually vote on the shortlist. And that's what's happened this time. The Bob Ross oil painting suggestion was really popular initially, but when we put them into the shortlist, it was the jelly gouache that came out on top. It's not a supply that I would have picked myself, which is a good thing. That's good because we all know that I like to try new things. So I'm really curious to find out what these are all about. And normally I wouldn't do any research or anything like that because I just like to try things blind and find things out for myself. But because I'm familiar with gouache, I did have a little look and do a little bit of research before I bought any. And I found out a little bit about the gouache and why it is popular and how it came about. So we'll talk about a little bit of that as we go along. My curiosity has got the better of me and I've actually bought 3 sets of jelly gouache. Now if they all turn out to be the same, then I will put the extra ones into the stash shop for some of you guys to pick up at a discounted price. So we're going to take a look at these supplies today. We're going to get a feel for them and kind of road test them and just really see what they're all about. So let's get to top down view and we can get going. Okay, so here's the thing. We had £50 in the cave stash and I went online and I've been kind of struggling to get items here in a timely fashion. Things are still available, but they're just not getting to Scotland quickly. The first thing that I bought was the one that's probably the most popular, and I haven't even looked at these yet. Let's get this out of here. And this is the Maya Himi set of jelly gouache paints. And this is a rather attractive palette. The first thing that struck me was the weight in these things. Like, you could give someone a good batter around the head with that if you were feeling that way inclined. Yeah, so basically it just looks like a big massive Tupperware tub. I have tubs with these clip lids and that's obviously how it's keeping the paint wet. So for the uninitiated, the idea behind this is that there are little packets of gouache paint and they're called jelly gouache because they come in these little tubs that look apparently like what you would get jelly in. Now I'm assuming that that is a Japanese thing because it's certainly not something that you would find here, certainly not in tubs this size. That's kind of the premise of it. Now apparently these were designed for art students in Japan for when they were sitting their exams, so that the paint was there and ready to use and ready to go, and they didn't have to mess about and waste time on that aspect. They could just get on with the actual painting. So that apparently is where all this has come from. So there's 18 colours in this set, and I have to say that lid is very stiff, but I suppose that's a good thing. Oh, okay. And what is this? Oh, this is a palette. Okay, so we've got a mixing surface as well. I probably won't use this, but okay. And this must be our gouache. Really, Japan, you get pots of jelly that size? These remind me of the little single serve tubs of ketchup you get in fast food places. That's, you know, like to dip your fries in. I don't think there's colour names on these, and if they are in Japanese. That's a dark colour. So they're really tightly packed in here as well. Wow. Okay, so we're going down the way. And we're going in rows. Now, they've all got not different pictures on them, but some have got a dog on them, some have got mountains, some have got a cat stretching, so make of that what you will. Oh, there's another green. So they say this seems to be a fairly sturdy design. Now, for these Himi paints, I paid £17.99 for this set, so basically a pound a pot. Okay, we've got some whites and yellows. Wow. Now I'm wondering if anywhere in amongst this that the colours are in English. Okay, so this tray itself, this is one piece. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay, we've got colour names on this label here. We have colour names on the back. Okay, yeah, so fairly sturdy construct. Not much bend in them, so I would say that's a fairly well made blob of plastic. Now there's a hair in here and that is not one of my dog's hairs, so that's a bit disconcerting, but okay, never mind. So from what I can see on the back here, we have two whites, which I can't read the colour names. I'm assuming one will be like a titanium white for mixing and the other one will be like a zinc white. Okay, I'm just going to take a look at one of these and see what the crack is. This is like opening a yogurt pot. Oh. Okay, it's not like jiggly consistency or anything. Wow, this is going to be so messy. So it looks quite glossy. Obviously it's wet and the consistency is still really thick. One of the things I was kind of concerned about was whether or not it was going to be slightly more watered down than normal gouache, but it really doesn't seem to be the case. I'm not enjoying the fact that a lot of it's stuck to the foil lids here, and it kind of makes me want to scrape it off and try and rescue it, but I think that's probably going to be more hassle than it's worth, so I'm not going to do that. There is very little smell to them as well. I'm not a fan of chemically smells, and there's virtually no smell off them, so that's quite nice as well. But they do look really thick and juicy, and they're very, very, very vibrant, which is what I would expect from gouache, to be fair. So yeah, I'm just going to continue on, and I'm going to take all the foil lids off of these. Oh, this one looks like chocolate pudding. And I'll put them all back in this little rack here. This kind of reminds me of racking up samples in the science lab. I used to do a lot of that. So I'll do that and then I'll catch you back up. Okay, I just want to point this out that these little plastic containers and these lids are not the best quality. This is the second one where I've gone to pull back the tab to open it and almost impossible, and the adhesive layer of the film has come away from the actual lid part here, so it's still stuck to the pot and the foil part's coming away. I'm sure most of you'll experience this with tops on milk bottles and things before. Oh, there we go, it's coming now. And these are they are really difficult to get off. Now obviously they've got to withstand freight shipping and things, so they have to be really, really well stuck down so that they don't burst. But this is quite a lot of work. So I'm kind of glad I got the 18 set, not the 24 set. Yeah, that's another thing to note. You can get the Hemi paints in a set of 24. That's readily available on Amazon UK. I don't know about other countries. Maybe you guys could chime in the comments if it's, you know, you have more choice or less choice in your home countries. Wow, look at that part. That's lovely. That's really nice. And again, I'm assuming that those costs will fluctuate. This is what I'm talking about here. Can you see that? This is not good. So there we go. We've got two whites. And I can't see any immediate difference at the moment. Thank God I'm only going to have to do this once. Well, actually, I'm not going to have to. I'm going to do it more than once. But I mean, for, you know, if you're using a set of these, you only have to do it once. Oh, come on. There we go. So they do look delightful when you see them like that. The next test for me is, I have got this all over my fingers. So I'm going to go and wash my hands and see how easy it is to get off my hands. But in the meantime, I want to see whether or not this is all going to stick to the lid. Oh, I've got my finger in the black already. The good news is it comes off really easily, just some soap and warm water and it slid straight off my hands, and also from my nails as well. My nails are bare just now, so anything like that is, you know, tends to sort of stick to them, and I've had no issues getting it out from, you know, from underneath, which is really good as well. So for the purposes of testing out, I've got my Faber-Castell mixed media pad, which I just use for testing things. That's what we do. And I've also decided on a synthetic brush, just because the bristles are a little bit firmer than some of the watercolour brushes, and I just figured they'd be better for testing this out. I'm assuming that this will loosen up with time. Obviously it's very stiff because it's new. I'm interested to see that the word gouache has been scored out on the front of the box as well. Not really sure what that means. Right, okay, let's see what happens when we lift this now. And there is paint stuck to the edges as expected. That is something that is going to really, really, really annoy me, because I don't like using these plastic palettes because they stain really easily. I much prefer, when I'm using water-based paints like this, I much prefer using a ceramic palette, so I think I'm just going to use that as a protective lid and just you know, get on with the fact that it's going to get dirty. The first thing I want to do is just wet my brush and lift some of these out and swatch them out. Now, although the paint's thick, it doesn't feel goopy and immobile. Sometimes when you're using gouache straight out of the tube, it can be very difficult to get it to do anything because it is quite stiff. And the pigment is really, really rich. You know, I mean, they're cheap paints. They're not really not that expensive. And unless you're doing massive pieces, this paint will last a while. You know, there's quite a lot of paint. There's 30 mils of paint in there. It feels really nice. It feels silky. It feels soft. It doesn't feel gloopy or blobby or anything like that. So that's really encouraging, because I really did think, honestly, when someone first mentioned this, I thought, oh, this is really gimmicky. But I am not a fan of using paint from a tube, straight from a tube anyway. And quite a lot of the time, especially with watercolours, I tend to put them into a half pan anyway. And I prefer to use them out of the pan. So this might actually suit me because the gouache that I have is in tubes and I'm having to squeeze it out onto onto a palette. So at least I could just reserve that for mixing colours, which would be nice. So I just want to get a feel for these, but they're so soft. And obviously I'm not diluting these with water, I'm just going straight in with just a damp brush to see what's happening. The thing is with gouache, you do have to wait until they're dry before you get a proper assessment of what the colour's actually going to look like. So I'm just going to let them do their thing while I carry on here. And the consistency seems to be consistent, and I know that sounds really stupid, but I mean, between the colours, you know, one isn't a lot thicker than another. They seem to be quite uniform in that sense. I'm interested to see the drying time for these as well. Again, considering these are designed to stay wet, I'm assuming that's going to be more to do with the airtight container than the actual makeup of the paints themselves. Look at this purple. Look at it. Whoa. It's quite funny that these two colours are next to each other. This sort of golden yellow and the purple, that was my school colours at my secondary school. We had purple blazers with gold piping on them. They were hideous things. White. Now I'm interested to see what these whites look like side by side, because this one looks more like a zinc, as in it's got a bit of a yellow tint to it. So I'm just going to go straight into the one beside it rather than go back to the top. Oh, now that I've put the other one down, I'm not sure. This second one, which is this one here, seems to be a little bit more opaque. So maybe that's the one you would keep pure for highlights, but it does look yellowy, or it doesn't on the camera though. This one's definitely more opaque. Anyway, we'll come back up here to what we were doing. I've no idea what I'm going to paint with these, but I think it'll have to be something that utilises all these colours. But they are really nice. The pigment's lovely in them. I'm quite enjoying myself already, and we're just swatching out. And normally I don't like swatching out. Now, what colour is this? This could be like a slate grey, or it could be a really dark blue. Oh, it's like an indigo colour. Okay, so Mr. Jem's just been in and he's renamed all these colours, and I'm not going to repeat some of them. Right, where were we? We tested out the indigo. That is really, really dark, and it kind of looks more like black than indigo. But again, that's maybe if you water that down slightly, and I know that you're not supposed to water down gouache, but I think if you want to actually see that indigo colour, you would have to. Right, let's get into the greens more importantly. They are really smooth. I know I've said that already, but they feel nice. I'm kind of enjoying this. Now these ones are dry now, and they took about 10 minutes to dry properly. Again, it's quite warm in the cave because the heating's on, because it's frickin' freezing outside. Now this one seems really, really thick. Like, this is way thicker than the other ones. It's got that sort of peak consistency. And it's not making a huge amount of difference though when we're putting it down on the paper, which is always nice. But that's definitely a thicker consistency than the other ones so far. And the black is always interesting because I like to see how dark it really is, and that's fairly dark. Yeah, that's quite nice. Okay, so we've got a really nice colour range as well. I'm impressed. And having a colour range isn't as big a deal with paint because obviously it's easy for you to mix your own colours, especially when you have the primary colours and you have white and black as well. That's all you need. But in the interest of speed, again, bearing in mind what this palette was designed for initially, this is ideal. You've got a really good set of colours here. Now, I was waiting on these whites drying and I still can't see a huge amount of difference in them. So again, I'm pretty sure it's, you know, one for mixing and one to use as a highlight. That would make sense. And this one does seem even dry. It seems to be more opaque and less yellowy than this one. But in the actual pot, it does look yellowier than this one. So the jury's out on that for me. So the other thing I want to test out is the actual opacity of the paints. Now specifically the white, because I want to try and see if there's a difference between the two. So I'm just going to take a wee stripe across there. So they seem to be covering much the same. There's not an awful lot going on there. Again, we can wait until it's dry. And the sign of good gouache is the fact that you can layer up these colours and the opacity will completely cover up what's underneath. So you can work in layers like you would with acrylic or oil or any other sort of opaque medium as well. So I'm just going to do this in a range of colours here. Now, I was wanting to do it in one of the darker colours. I think I'll go on the bottom of this indigo because that's dry and just see how much we can cover up. And it's covering perfectly. So yeah, I'm really impressed with these. For the price, I think I'm gonna quite enjoy these paints. This is quite good. So the next thing I want to do is just test their dilution ability. Now again, not something traditionally you would do with gouache, but if you've got the option, it's always nice, especially if you want paler backgrounds. So I'm going to try with this purple, and then I just want to start adding some water to it and see what happens. And that is diluting out fairly nicely. Now, a lot of this will be to do with the paper. This is mixed media paper, so we won't be able to do too much, but you can see there it's diluting quite evenly. You know, the colour's not clumping up in specific areas. The pigment is spreading out quite nicely, and we can get some quite delicate shades here, you know, really sort of desaturated, which again is something that I'm quite into, especially for backgrounds. So we can add some more water to that and really just sort of work that out onto the paper, and that's really nice. And you've got quite a nice watercolour effect from that as well. So we do have versatility in these paints too. I don't know if you can hear that, that's my bread maker going, trying to make a malted loaf. Long story, multitasking, always multitasking. Anyway, yeah, so first impressions are really great. I'm quite excited about these paints. The drying time's good, the opacity's good, the pigment is amazing, and the dilution possibilities are great too. The jury's still out on these whites, but we can get back to that in a minute. Okay, so now to the slightly more interesting, or perhaps not so interesting part of this video. This was $17.99, as I said. So with the remaining money, I bought another palette, and I think they might be the same, but they're just under a different brand name. Now this is the Art X set, and it's exactly the same box. There's a slightly different, there's no square around it, but apart from that, it looks suspiciously similar. Now, this was also on Amazon, and this was $23.99 reduced down to $17.99. So I did pay the same amount of money for these, but this one was originally supposed to be more money. So I'm really curious to see whether these have just been rebranded, and it looks suspiciously like it. It's got the same insert in the lid. Obviously, we're just in a slightly different colour here. And I'm just going to tip these all out. Oh, look, this looks familiar. And these are in exactly the same layout as these ones. If I just take this back off again. Yep, so exactly the same colour combinations. And these pigments look identical. And I would go as far as to say is that they definitely are. There is no doubt about that. That is the same set of paints. So I was quite curious about that, and my curiosity has definitely been satisfied. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of these sets on the stash shop for you guys. I was going to open one of them and test out the paint to see if the paint is the same, but I don't think there's any dispute. Oh, I've just didn't mean to poke my finger in that. Oh no. I'm going to have a green nail now. Oh. I was trying to lift that out there just so that I could see the bottom of the... Yeah, the containers are the same and everything, so I'm not going to open these ones, and I think we can safely make the assumption that they are just the same paints. But oh my goodness, I wonder if I can put these back in like this. That would be a good trick, wouldn't it? Yes! Now, interesting though, in the ArtX box we do get a colour chart, which is really nice with the colour names, and you can see it, and you get quite a funky wee postcard there as well that's got a nice design on it, and a thank you note from them for purchasing. They've even got a hashtag for you to share your artwork with that you make with said item. I do find it interesting that these were originally actually more expensive. Oh, no. No, I've got indigo paint all over this one. That was not supposed to happen. Okay, I think we better put this palette in the stash shop because I don't know how well this is going to come off. Yeah, all this new stuff, new and sealed, I'll put it in the stash shop. Good gem. Yeah, so it's quite interesting that these were originally marketed at a higher price, and maybe they realised that the Hemi paints could be bought for $17.99 and decided just to drop them, or I don't really know. I don't know, to be honest, but I do find that rather interesting that these are just rebranded. So the last thing that I bought, and this was actually a comment that someone left on the under the community post when I revealed that it was going to be Jelly Gouache that we're going to be working with, and someone had talked about getting refills for these. Now, I thought that was quite an interesting point as well, because it's certainly something, if you decide it's something that you like, I can see, although those are big containers, although there's 30ml of paint there, I can see you going through them really quickly, especially, again, if you're working on bigger pieces. And I had a scout about the internet, and you can buy individual refills for this from AliExpress. I have heard mixed reviews about AliExpress, about things not arriving or things taking a long time to arrive because they come from China, and problems with customs and things like that. I have never used AliExpress, but I have bought things from Wish, which obviously also come from China. So I think that's kind of one of the things where you have to decide whether you're going to take a risk or not. However, I did find a third set of gouache paints. This set was much cheaper. This set was only £10, and it has this sort of rubber palette that looks like chocolate blocks on the top of it, and it says Marie's. Now, I've heard of Marie's before, but I've never tried anything of theirs, and these are the paints. So I am curious now to see whether any of these colours match up with what we've got in there, and whether or not these pots fit in those gaps as well, because this would be a really cheap way for you to refill your gouache pots. So the first thing I want to do, now straight away I notice there's only one white in there. I want to see if these are going to fit in here, and they don't look like they're going to fit. These are a completely different shape and they're a different size and they don't fit. Okay, so I thought I really might have found an alternative there to the refill problem. So as it stands, if you want refills, you will have to chance your luck with AliExpress. If anybody has found refills, whether they're rebranded or not, because clearly they are not exclusive to Maya Hime. If anybody has found any other alternatives, please feel free to let everyone else know in the comments down below. So I think really our comparison is going to come between the Hime paints and these ones from Marie's, again made in China. Quite a similar set of colours. So let me do what I did before. I'll tip these out. Wow, oh wow. And let's just see what they look like next to these ones. We have a flesh tone instead. Now this is interesting. I said these are hard. That is actually dried in there and I can see it. I don't know if you can see the crack in it there. So this might be interesting just to open up. Right, some of these are absolutely rock hard round the outside. Okay, so let's pop these out the way. Okay, here we go. Let's see how easy this is to open. Oh, it's not. Oh, no. I can barely get the cellophane off this. Oh, no. Okay, that is proper jelly. Where did the red come from? Right, okay, the one thing I don't like about these is they are really messy. So, I don't really know what I'm going to do with this, to be honest. I'm going to try sticking my paintbrush in to see what happens, just see what happens. But, Oh, that is terrible consistency. Oh no, look at this. It's going down okay though. It seems to be fairly fairly sturdy, but they are jelly in the true sense. They, you know. Okay, so these aren't dried out. They are just a much thicker consistency, and I would say they feel a bit more like traditional gouache out of tube. But again, they seem to be perfectly mobile. They're maybe not quite as opaque as the Himi stroke Artex ones. We shall let them dry and see what happens. I'm kind of disappointed that the tubs aren't the same size, because it would have been really nice if they fitted in the other palettes. Now, I do believe though that this tray, when you put the top on it, that will be airtight, because it does fit quite tightly down and round the outside there. I'm not entirely convinced about that. These seem really, really cheap for what, you know, for what you're getting. That's a lot of paint for £10. But whether or not it's up to the standard of the other ones will be up for debate. And I think we'll have to explore that further in the next video when we actually start painting something. But these, aside from feeling like they're dried out, they're actually not. I just thought that was quite interesting, that the consistency of them is so different from the other ones. So the thing that interests me about this set of Marie's paints as well, you have quite a considerable colour selection there, but there isn't actually a true green. We've got a very pale mint green, we've got more of a turquoise colour, and we've got a dark, closer to teal colour, but there's no sort of spring green or dark forest green, which in a set of paints like this I would expect. The other thing that's going to be good to look at as well is there is going to be a couple of days between filming this and filming the next stash video, which will be some sort of painting, and it will be interesting to see how well these actually fare, you know, how much they are actually going to stay wet. And I have a feeling that the Himi set will do considerably better, because this is literally just a rubber cover. So that's going to be something to watch out for. They are just going to be sitting in the cave. I'm not going to put them on top of a radiator or anything stupid like that. The other thing as well is, because these are thicker paints, and I cannot attest to how consistent my laydown was with these compared to the Himi paints, but these are taking a lot longer to dry, and the yellow in particular looks to be far less opaque. I don't know if you can see that in the light there, but on this right hand side I can see the paper through the paint, and compared to most of the other ones, that's you know, that's just something to note. But the laydown is much more uneven, so I'm putting that down to the consistency of the actual paint in the pan compared to how smooth the Himi ones were as well. But this is a cheap set of paints, like these are so cheap. £10 for all of these, so I paid nearly double, and you're getting 2 more pots in this compared to the other set. So you're getting 20 colours in this for £10, so you're effectively paying 50p per pot, whereas with the Himi paints there's 18 in there and I paid £18. The box is much sturdier though. Now that, I mean, the construction of this, there's nothing wrong with this is really rigid. It's more the lid situation that's questionable, and I think that's something we're just going to have to find out in time. But I'm quite upset that these pots don't fit in there, because that would have been a really nice alternative to having to buy from AliExpress and wait for a long time. I think if that's something you're going to get into and you're happy to buy from AliExpress, it's one of those things you'd have to sort of like preempt that, so when you're getting low on a colour, make sure you know you ordered new ones well in advance. So we're going to try and pop this on and see how well it fits. It seems to slide on really easily, but I don't feel as if it's secure. And I say it's really annoying because it just looks like a big block of chocolate. Now it is sitting up at the edges as well. If I just turn it over, you can see here there's a gap in there. That should be tight down round, and it doesn't want to go. It doesn't want to do it, so that is going to be problematic, I think. I suppose the alternative is you could stick a couple of rubber bands around it across the middle here, or tie it down, or even tape it with washi tape would be an idea. You know, just like put a little bit of tape down over the sides to try and keep it, because it is warped, it's buckled. So yeah, that'll be interesting, but we can find that out in due course. That is not going to be a huge issue. That's just a little experiment. And same thing, so you're going to get a little bit of sticky paint on the underside, and you just have to realise that that's really what it's there for. Okay, so we're going to do some crossover now. My orange is more or less dry, or my yellow, golden yellow, whatever you want to call it. Oh, right, this is what I don't like about gouache. This lump here. This is what I was talking about when I was mentioning mobility of the paint. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is what you don't want. So I've got a big clump there, but because it's sitting on paint that's glided underneath it, the blob's just moving about on top. And when you're actually trying to paint something, that is not ideal. Okay, so we're still getting the opacity. That's always something. Pretty opaque, pretty good. All right, so for a first foray into jelly gouache, I am pleasantly surprised, I have to say. I didn't think I was going to be quite as enthusiastic as I am, so that's thanks to you guys. So thank you for putting me in the position to have to try something that I wouldn't necessarily have gone for. This has been quite an interesting little video. I wonder how many times I've said interesting in this video. But yeah, so we've got the Marie's paints, which was 20 for £10. And just based on this first impression, I am much more of a fan of the softer consistency of these Hemi paints. Plus as well, they come in a really nice box, and I feel like this box is really sturdy and it is going to be really airtight and keep those wet for as long as you want them to be. I'm not so confident about the Marie's paints, but if you're on a budget and you want to try jelly gouache, I don't think these are going to be a particularly bad place to start. The proof, of course, is in the pudding. So in the next stash series video, we are going to paint something and we'll really put these through their paces. But for a first little attempt, I am suitably impressed. So that is it for today, guys. I want to thank you for all your input into making these videos possible, because these videos really are about you lot and not me. And it's always nice to have a little adventure that's not of my own making. Sometimes there's something really nice about that. So until the next time, just stay safe, please look after each other, and have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.